What came to my mind, specifically speaking, was deja vu. Here we go again. I say so because there is precedent for what is happening now. And interestingly, one of the subjects, one of the parties involved, at least one of the parties being investigated, I threw up this issue of suspension. Senator Ndume was in the eye of the storm in 2009, 2010, when Dimeji Bankole was the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And the progressives now constituted themselves into an internal opposition, the aftermath of which was the suspension of Ndume and some other people. I remember Doris Ubo, West Dausa. Incidentally, I was working with the Honorable Ihioge West Dausa at that point, and in his chamber, by the way, in his law chamber. Interestingly, Dino went to court. Dino with some few others went to court, and the product of that judicial intervention was an invalidation of the process of suspension for the time it was done. How? The court held that Parliament, the House of Reps, had no such power to suspend Dino and his colleagues in excess of 14 days. So when I heard this again, I said, oh, we've gone full circle again. Oh, here we go again, the dog chasing its tail. I was surprised because even the fact that one of the people who was investigated by the by the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges, Ndume, ought to know that they had no such powers. But probably he had no leverage on the Senate. So, but he should know, having benefited from a judicial interpretation of the action of the House of Representatives, it left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was like, what happens now to Borno South? The subject matter of the inquiry during which Ndume testified was not Ndume. He was only called as a witness. You said that ABCD happens. Come and tell us what you say happened. He will come and say it, and then they will not call the VC of the Ahmadu Bello University, and probably if they had access to call Sahara reporters. He came to testify about what he read and probably the effect it had on him, which prompted him to come to the floor of the Senate to say so. He was not under trial. Senator Bukola Saraki and Senator Ndume were on trial. They cannot convert what was meant to as an inquiry into the conduct of Dino and Saraki, now turn it to be an inquisition on the conduct of do not forget that the Committee on Ethics had a mandate, and the mandate was given to them on the floor of the plenary. Set up and investigate allegation made by this person against the Senate President. So it's not to investigate allegation against Ndume that he was mischievous or that he did not conduct himself properly. The course of law, the rule of fair here means that if in the course of investigating one thing you find out that something else has happened, you call the person involved, even if he was involved in the first one. In fact, in administrative inquiries, in administrative tribunals like maybe disciplinary procedures in the ministry, if you are testifying that your director stole and suddenly it is found that you participated in a way, they will issue you a query, fresh query. They will not start asking you a question on that. Probably they could ask question on that to discredit what you say about your director, but they will now have to issue you fresh query, now set up a panel, now invite you for you to testify. The fact that you were there right before the panel does not mean that they give you a right to be heard, because what you were there for is entirely a different thing. It is both subject matter, it is both persona, in which case the subject matter must relate to the person, and then you must be physically available to testify. If that is not done, then the rules of fair hearing have been breached.
What are the implications, if any, about the suspension of Senator Ndume on the people of his constituency, Borno South?
The work of parliamentarians all over the world is more or less advocacy. Every other thing is ancillary. It is to speak for the people. They are more of speakers, while the executive is doers. And now, more than at any other time in the history of Nigeria, you know, the issue of this insurgency has changed the fortunes of our country, second only to the Civil War. And you know that the ground zero for this war, the current war, is in the northeast, especially Borno State. So if any part of Nigeria needs to be effectively represented for the purpose of rehabilitation, for the purpose of even reconstruction, it is Borno. And there is wisdom in the provision of the law that limits the number of senators from every state to 3. It's not like the House of Representatives where you have different numbers for different states based on their demographic factors. But here, there are 3 senators for each state, which means there should be a semblance of balance. If it were possible, one would even advocate that Borno should have extra senatorial voices right now because of the nature of what they have passed through and what they are passing through. But here we are. Their voices have been depleted by 1 for the next 6 months. I overheard the spokesperson for the Senate on the other day on one of your programs, I think Sunrise, on phone, saying that the people of Borno will not lose much because even their zonal interventions, the one that is accruable to Borno will still go there. But it goes beyond that. Like I said, the work of a legislator is more of advocacy. Who will speak for Borno State now?